What is going on, guys? Chip here. Welcome back to another Pokemon TCG online video, where today I'm going to be taking a look at the deck that I used recently at the North American International Championships. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have the finish I was hoping for. I did finish day 1 at 6-3, meaning I did not make it on to day 2. I was really hoping I could make it into day 2, but, you know, I did make top 128, allowing me to earn 90 championship points, which also allowed me to earn my World's invitation to the Pokemon World Championships in Anaheim later on in this year, so I'm very excited about that. Definitely can't complain with a finish there, just getting me the points I needed to get to Worlds, so I'm definitely looking forward to that tournament in August. Hoping to see you guys there, and hoping to do really well at the World Championships for sure. So we're going to go ahead here and take a look at the Mega Rayquaza deck that I used. Now, I know this should not come as any surprise to most people that I decided to play Mega Rayquaza, but I actually was set on a Zoroark Drampa version of the, or Zoroark Drampa variant, I guess I should say, a Zoroark Drampa deck until 8:30 before the tournament started. Tournament was supposed to start around 9-ish. So, yeah, 30 minutes before the tournament, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to play the deck that I have been most comfortable with throughout this whole season. And play the deck that has netted me most of my championship points. I think it would just be fitting if I earn my World's invite by playing the deck that I have used so much throughout the season. So I went with Mega Rayquaza, a deck that I thought had pretty solid matchups across the board. I think it takes an unfavorable matchup to Zoroark, but it's a matchup you can win. It's a really, really tough matchup, though. It's pretty heavily in Zoroark's favor, in my opinion. I talked to some other Rayquaza players throughout the weekend that said that they could beat it no problem, but that was actually a matchup I tested a lot, and it almost always ended in Zoroark's favor. So here's the Mega Rayquaza list that I used. Let's go ahead and expand it out. We're just look at the list briefly here, and then we will talk about my matchups, talk about the tournament, all that stuff. So here we go, running a 3-3 line of Mega Rayquaza with that Emerald Break attack, 30 damage times the number of benched Pokemon. Of course, with the Skyfield Stadium allowing me to have 8 benched Pokemon, I can hit for 240 damage. And with Professor Kukui, 260, which allows me to one-shot everything relevant in the format, at least, that I can think of. I mean, besides like a Fighting Fury belted Wailord, I can one-shot everything in the format. And even if I did go up against something like that, I did have 2 copies of Field Blower, so yeah, Kukui there really just to let me get that one-hit KO on those 250 HP Pokemon if I was to face anything like Segaleo or Metagross, more likely, anything like that. There's, you know, a few Pokemon out there with 250, you know, Primarina or Incineroar even. So I definitely was glad to have Kukui in the deck. Honestly, this is one of the spots that I've debated back and forth on. I was either going to play the Professor Kukui or the Tapu Koko promo. I decided on the Professor Kukui. Looking at it now, I maybe should have gone with the Tapu Koko promo. I think after thinking about it a little more, the Tapu Koko promo earlier on can help you in the Zoroark matchup. I'm just going to go ahead and pull up the Tapu Koko. Can help you in the Zoroark matchup for sure. Just putting 20 on the board everywhere means you have to have less benched Pokemon later on in the game. So I probably would have liked to have had this card. But Kukui, I didn't end up needing it. I didn't play against any of those Metagross decks, but I still would want it in the deck for the instance that I was to play against a Metagross, because getting a one-hit knockout can be pretty crucial in that matchup, as well as, you know, Hexmaniac is a pretty good card as well. So there's the 3-3 Rayquaza, 4 Shaymin EX, of course, with that setup ability, letting us draw more cards. I did only play 1 Tapu Lele GX. I've really only ever found the need for 1. I had played 2 in some of my earlier lists. But this is supposed to be a fast deck that lets you set up a lot, and I didn't want to cut down on Shaymins. I didn't want to cut down on any of the supporters for another Lele or anything like that. And I found the 1 Lele to be sufficient for what I needed for sure. Also, just finishing out, you know, we got the Hoopa. You guys should know what this does. I chose to play the Metal version with Magearna EX, of course, for things like this would help me against things like Drampa GX's Righteous Edge, discarding special energies, of course. It could also help me against a Trubbish Acid Spray, potentially. It could also help me against the Confusion, a Psybeam from Espeon GX. So Magearna, you know, could do a lot for me there. I actually ended up not playing against any Espeon Garbodors, so didn't need it for that. But it helped save a few DCEs from Righteous Edge throughout the weekend, for sure. I also decided to play Sudowoodo here with the Roadblock ability. The ability here is just really, really nice in this format that is so reliant on coming into play abilities such as, like so many decks rely heavily on Tapu Lele. if they have 4 bench Pokemon and they don't have that 5th spot to bench their Lele to get a supporter out, you can really limit them later on in the game. And it's just good, you know, against things like Decidueye that need to have large benches. You know, and if I was to ever play against a Rayquaza, Mirror Sudowoodo would be very good in that as well, of course. I also decided to play one Oricorio as kind of like the last tech option. This is very good against Vespiquen, obviously, but also has utility uses. I didn't play against a single Vespiquen, but Oricorio definitely helped me win one of my games that I'll talk about later on down the road. 1 Dragonite EX, I haven't found the need for 2. I know I used to play 2 a lot, but with Rescue Stretcher in the deck, I don't really see as much need for it, and especially with a lot of lists moving away from playing Parallel City. I didn't play against a single Parallel City throughout the weekend, so with lists moving away from that, I haven't seen as much need for Dragonite EX. I know a lot of the Espeon Garbs that made Day 2 played Parallel City, so maybe I would consider adding another Dragonite, but I think with the Dragonite and the Rescue Stretcher, plus Field Blower, you can get rid of Parallel City that way, so I just think you only need 1 Dragonite at this point. And I think that covers all the Pokemon. We'll talk about some more of the cards I played here. I did play 2 copies of Field Blower. I tested a long time with just 1. I'm really glad I ended up playing 2. It helped me against the 2 Garbodors I played against. And the theory here for playing the second one as well is to let me set up with my Skyfield and use the Field Blower to discard my own Skyfield in the Zoroark matchup so that they can't one-shot a Rayquaza, and I can also discard the Shaymins and things like that. But didn't end up quite working out that way. We've also got, since I only played 1 Zoroark, but anyway, we've got 3 copies of Mega Turbo, just a really good card to let me power up my Rayquaza in 1 single turn. 1 copy of Rescue Stretcher, I can use this to get back a Mega that I discarded earlier to Mega Evolve. I can shuffle back some 3 Pokemon if I need more resources later on in the game. Lots of options there with Rescue Stretcher. Also had 1 copy of Special Charge. With Drampa GX being so prevalent, I wanted to have a way to get back these double colorless energy since the deck just really heavily relies on double colorless energy. And outside of my 2 Floatstones, I don't have any retreat options other than double colorless energy. Everything in the deck retreats for a DCE except for Dragonite EX, which ended up hurting me in 1 match that I'll talk about as well in a little bit. So 1 Special Charge was definitely really, really good. I haven't played Special Charge on a lot of lists this season, but I found the need for it in this tournament just with the release of Drampa, and Drampa just being such a played card. 4 Ultra Ball, pretty self-explanatory there. Same as 4 VS Seekers. I have seen some lists cutting down to 3, but I still think 4 is nice. 4 Skyfields here, just letting us fill up our bench. 2 Hex Maniac. Hex Maniac is still a very strong card in this format, with decks like Tapu Bulu and Volcanion all doing well. Just having a turn of locking your opponent's abilities can be nice, but this is something I would actually consider cutting down to a single copy of. It is still good, but there are less decks that rely on it as to previously, so if that makes any sense. So there we go, 2 Hex Maniac, 2 Lysander as well, letting us bring up whatever we want to KO on our opponent's bench. 1 copy of Malo. I liked this card a lot throughout the weekend, but it's kind of weird because sure, if you have a Shaymin in your hand, Malo will let you get any 2 cards, but sometimes you need more than 2 cards, and playing Malo can kind of limit you to just a couple things where maybe a Sycamore would be better in that instance, or an N would have been better in that instance. So I am still kind of torn on this card. It was definitely nice to just get specific pieces when I need it, but I found myself kind of getting locked into these Malo plays where I'm getting a couple of cards, but I'm kind of leaving myself with not as many options on the next turn, if that makes sense. So yeah, I like this card a lot. I think I would definitely still play it in the list. 2 copies of N here, just Shuffle Draw, Disruption, all that good stuff. We already talked about the Kukui pretty extensively, and 3 copies of Professor Sycamore to round out the supporters. 2 copies of Floatstone, just letting us retreat our high retreat cost Pokemon. Yeah, I don't think I would change this to any other count. I saw one list that played 1 Floatstone, 1 Escape Rope. I would maybe consider something like that, but for the most part, I found 2 Floatstone to be pretty nice. 3 copies of Rayquaza Spirit Link. I've seen some lists cut down to just 2 copies of the Ray Spirit Link. I definitely think you need 3. Making Rayquazas in the late game is really important, and sometimes so. I don't think you should ever cut below 3. And we've also got 4 double colorless energies and 4 metal energies to round things out. So there we go. There's my list. I'm going to go ahead and talk about my matchups really quick and the tournament experience as a whole. I enjoyed the tournament a lot. Thank you so much to anyone who came up to me and said hello. Meant a lot. I had a ton of people come up and say they enjoyed watching my videos, that they recognize me from YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff. So your guys' support means so much to me. It was great meeting so many of you guys. I took a lot of pictures, signed a couple of cards, things like that. So thanks to anyone who came up to me and said hello. So let's see. Let's get into it here. Round 1, I played against Josh Parsons, and when we started, he flipped over a Sceptile EX and went and Ultra Balled for a, or Level Balled maybe. No, he Great Balled. He played Great Ball. Great Balled for a Spinnerack. So not something I was expecting to play against, but Ariados, Sceptile EX, definitely a matchup that I felt pretty good in for Mega Rayquaza. So played against that one pretty quickly there, 2-0. Round 2, I played against Benjamin Kuntz, who was playing Tapu Bulu Vikavolt, I believe, and I ended up playing a couple of these throughout the tournament, so I think that's generally a pretty favorable matchup for Rayquaza. They do have the Vikavolt baby that lets them one-shot a Rayquaza, but sometimes Hexmaniac can just leave that deck with no options. They, can't attach energies if they can't use Strong Charge, and they have to make a Stage 2 Pokemon in order to one-shot your Mega Rayquaza, so if you can prevent them from doing that, I think it's a pretty good matchup for Rayquaza. So one there, I don't remember the game counts for all of these guys, so we'll go on to round number 3. I played against Benjamin Behrens, who was Pokementor, as you guys may know him from YouTube or Snapchat, Facebook, all those things. They do a lot of stuff on social media. He is a player from Norway who's good friends with actually Tord, who ended up winning the tournament, so pretty cool there. And Benjamin himself actually did end up making day 2, so congrats to him. Cool meeting him, cool playing against him. He was playing Drampa Garbodor, which I think is kind of a harder matchup, but definitely winnable for Rayquaza. You have to play 11 items before they can one-shot you, besides things like Choice Band, of course. Even then, you need to play 9 items. 9 or 10 items. You need to play a lot of items. So if you can limit your item use early on, you should be fine. They do play Garbotox and Garbodor, which can be a pain, but the 2 Field Blower is definitely nice to help alleviate some of those things. If I remember correctly, game 1, he just kind of dead drew. I think he would have lost in a couple turns regardless of what deck he was playing against. He just Trubbish, Attach, Sycamore, Pass, and then I do my first turn, don't really get anything. I miss the knockout, and then he goes and plays an N and misses a Pokemon again, pass, and then I end up taking the KO. So worked out for me there. That does happen sometimes. And game 2, he ended up winning. And game 3, I got a really, really fast setup, and his setup was a little slower than mine. So because of that, I just ended up kind of overwhelming him with Rayquaza, and he ended up losing game 3. So starting out 3-0 at the largest Pokemon tournament ever. Definitely was feeling pretty good about that. Then round 4, I sit down and I'm playing against Zach Lesage, who's a friend of mine from Canada. Huge shout out to him. We sit down. He flips over 2 Tapu Koko promos and goes and gets Decidueyes on his first search. Excuse me. So this is a matchup I haven't played before, just the Decidueye Koko. He wasn't playing Ninetales, but generally I felt like it's something that should be favored for Rayquaza, but I think I kind of approached it incorrectly in Game 1, and also Game 1 on turn 3, he had 4 Decidueyes set up, which meant he was just killing everything with Feather Arrows, so there was not much I could do there. In Game 1, I scooped pretty quickly, I think, and then you have to excuse me, guys. And then Game 2, it comes down to, like, he ends me to... Alright, this is the game that the Dragonite's Retreat ended up kind of messing with me. I had already had to get rid of both of my Float Stones, use both of my Float Stones. He Lysander's Dragonite, and then he's able to just get Feather Arrow damage on the field for a couple turns. I was able to Hex one of the turns to keep him from getting damage out while I was attaching energies. So I'm able to retreat Dragonite with a DCE and a Metal, and then get into a Rayquaza, take my 5th prize, and go down to just 1 prize remaining. He's got a Decidueye with like 150 damage on it from Emerald Break earlier on. And so I have the game the next turn, and he has 4 prizes left, but he's able to, from damage he's built up earlier, knock out a Shaman during his turn, and either off the prizes or just from his hand, after he ended us both, he had his last VS Seeker. He only played 2 VS Seeker. I saw his list after the tournament. He played 2 VS Seeker and 1 Lysander. He had his last VS Seeker to Lysander up a Shaman and knock it out with a Razor Leaf. So good games to Zach there. So 3-1 at this point. Still feeling pretty good. A matchup I feel like I should be favored in, but Zach said he had tested this matchup a lot, so he definitely knew how to approach it. And it was a deck I had not played against before, so I think I just kind of made some mistakes in Game 1. Tried to correct him in Game 2, but he was able to, like I said, stall out my Dragonite for a couple of turns, and I think that's what ended up giving him the game there. So round 5, I go up against Zach Taylor, another Vikavolt Bulu, second one of the day. Definitely, like I said earlier, I think a favorable matchup, so I was happy to play that, and I won 2 games there. Zach ended up making day 2 as well with Vikavolt Bulu, so huge congrats to him. Then round 6, I play against Dakota Gillanders, who's another friend of mine from Canada as well, friends with Zach Lesage and Jay Lesage, the Lesage brothers. We play, and he's playing Umbreon Zoroark, which is not a matchup I was really, a matchup I was wanting to play against for sure. Zoroark is very difficult for Rayquaza to deal with, and the Umbreon version especially makes it very difficult since you have to bench that extra Pokemon in order to take a knockout on an Umbreon GX as opposed to just a Drampa GX, and benching that extra Pokemon allows a choice-banded Zoroark to one-shot a Rayquaza, so... It's really a pretty bad matchup. This is one time that I really wished I had the Tapu Koko promo to just spread some damage early on, so I needed less benched Pokemon later on in the game. But unfortunately, I did not play the Tapu Koko, like I said. So he won 2 games there. Both of our games were pretty close, but he did end up winning 2-0 there. And Dakota also ended up getting his invite off of a 6-3 finish as well, so huge congrats to him. So we'll be seeing him at Worlds as well. And then round 7, I play up against my third Vikavolt Tapu Bulu. Not a deck I expected to play 3 of, but somehow I hit 3 of them. Sam Hausler, who was playing, Vikavolt Bulu, like I said. He actually played the Vikavolt GX, which I was pretty terrified of. It has 240 HP, and the whole time I'm just so scared that he's going to bust a Wide Lens out of nowhere and kill a bunch of Shaymins, and I'm just going to lose the game because of it. But fortunately, the first time he got Vikavolt GX up, I was able to get a full bench Emerald Break and take a knockout on it. So that was really good that I was able to knock that out, and he wasn't able to set it back up. And then game 2, excuse me, he kind of just didn't draw very well, had an awkward start. And if your opponent has an awkward start and Rayquaza has a fast or just even a normal start, which most normal starts for Rayquaza are pretty fast, you can just overwhelm your opponent, and that is what ended up happening there. And then, let's see, round number 8, I play up against Michael Catron, who's a friend of mine as well. He was playing Volcanion EX, which normally is a pretty good matchup for Rayquaza, but game 1, I just dead drew really, really bad, and he won quickly there. Game 2, I was able to win because, Emerald Break is a pretty good attack, just set up a lot faster than he did. He wasn't playing Max Elixirs in his list, so... he has to take a lot more time to set up. In game 3, I kind of drew a little awkwardly. He got an early knockout on a Shaymin. Then he was able to knock out my first Mega Rayquaza with a Volcanic Heat with a couple Steam Ups and a Choice Band. And then he had Lysander for the game on the next turn with his last with another Volcanion EX. So unfortunate there. That is where my day 2 hopes died. I was at 5-3, but then it came down to the last round. I had to win in the final round in order to get my invite to the World Championships. I sit down against Michael Kindell, who was playing a Drampa Garbodor deck, so a hard matchup again, but one I definitely think that you can win. And he kind of, so early on in game 1, he had to choice band a Garbotox and Garbodor in order to ability lock me. So later on in the game, I Lysandered it up after I Lysandered it up, and then I end him to just 2 cards. And I had Oricorio, and he only had 2 Pokemon in the discard pile, but for like 10 turns in a row, I just used Supernatural Dance and put 2 damage counters on his side of the field. I eventually got to put more damage counters once I knocked out a Garbodor, but I was just able to stall him out there for a little while, which was really, really nice, because he had to draw, I think, one of his last 2, I think he only had 2 Float Stones left, and he also had to draw his last Field Blower in order to Field Blower the Choice Band and get a Float Stone in order to retreat the Garbotox and Garbodor. So since he wasn't able to do that for a few turns, I was able to kind of come back in the game with the Oricorio and then in him to 1, take a knockout, and he just didn't have what he needed in order to win the game. So won a very, very long game 1, and then time gets called during game 2, right down at the end of game 2. He was turn 1 of time, if I remember correctly, and he had 4 prizes left, so theoretically he had a chance to win, but he whiffed what he needed to take a KO on turn 1, and so because of that, I knew there was no way I could lose that game. He can't take 4 prizes in 1 turn, so I just do something on turn 2, pass. Turn 3, he's like, yeah, I can't take any prizes, so you got it. And I got really, really excited because winning that game meant that I had cemented my invitation to the World Championships for the 2017 season. So I'm very excited about that. Really excited with my deck choice. I really do wish I had played the Tapu Koko promo. Maybe after the tournament, I think I would have cut down to just one Hex Maniac. Maybe, I don't know. It feels really weird to just play one Hex, but I think the Tapu Koko could definitely be a good inclusion in the deck. But there's Mega Rayquaza. I think this could be a good play for Worlds. I mean, it's a totally different format, so it seems like it should have a good matchup against some of the new cards that are coming out. But I haven't tested that format yet. We'll be testing it coming up soon, though. Thank you so much to anyone who came up to me, said hello, like I said. Your support means everything to me, you guys who watch my YouTube videos and my Twitch streams, all that stuff. So thank you so much for anyone who said hello. And that is going to do it for this video, for my tournament recap. Had a great time. My first Nationals / Internationals. Loved the experience. Got to hang out with so many friends, meet so many new people. It was a great time. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Definitely leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'm hoping to see some of you guys at the World Championships in the fall. Definitely make sure you come up, say hello. That's going to do it for me. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, take care.